Actually, I'll keep the glasses off. I can see either way.
Right. Good stuff. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Recruitment Curry Show. Kam Cho Namaste from very Apanu, Ahmedabad. Today, we have our special guest, the award-winning recruitment trainer, Bobby Banerjee from the UK. Bobby, welcome to the Recruitment Curry Show.
I'm so happy to be here, Ketan. Kem Cho, bhai.
Majama, Bobby, Majama. Thanks so much. So, today what we're going to be covering is actually, something that's going to be of more interest to a lot of sales and recruitment professionals, which is, relationship building tips for winning new clients. And then Bobby, our guest, is obviously going to enlighten us with his, experiences and, the insights from the recruitment world.
I can only hope to. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's so many things that in this exciting economy that we find ourselves in, wherever you are in the world, that there's lots of things that we can now do to help plan ourselves for 2023 and beyond. So I'm looking forward to kind of going through what we're gonna cover here, Ketan.
Definitely, Bobby. So for starters, how can recruiters actually, utilize relationship building, by managing candidates and then also, ending up, winning new clients? What do you suggest?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we know that in this particular economy, whether it's contract, perm, whatever market that you find yourself in, we are struggling to find candidates. And I was saying this to you before the show, and I'll happily go through this now. I mean, if I look at the British labour market as an example, if the British labour market was here pre-Brexit, I'm trying to make sure I get on the right part of the camera. So if the British labour market was here, what's happened over the last 4 or 5 years has been Brexit, which has meant that our employment, our skilled employment kind of labour market has shrunk a little bit. Obviously, apparently there's been a pandemic, which took a few lives, unfortunately. It meant that people decided to pivot on their careers and potentially start new businesses. And then we've got another scenario where over the last 12 months, it has been one of the most crazy, amazing I've seen, certainly in the UK, possibly globally. And so if I'm looking particularly at perm, all those people have been placed over the past 12 to 18 months. So now our recruitment market is so slim that what we're doing is we are having to look at new and exciting techniques to get hold of those people really kind of hidden away. But also we're looking at a bunch of convincing methods to show these people that actually your job that you're recruiting for right now is the right move for them. And with a backdrop of what a cost of living crisis, energy prices going through the roof, a lot of financial uncertainty, whether it's the British government or whatever that looks like. And so we've got we're swimming in a very interesting we're in a really interesting time, and it's actually about the relationships that you build that can actually help you on that journey.
Sure. So how do you build relationships, especially with people you don't know or people who don't know you? Where do you start?
Yeah, I mean, the best part is all of us, whoever's online right now, we have all got experience of doing that. In our personal lives, we have got experience of building long-lasting relationships, whether it's friends, partners, parents, whoever it is in our lives. We have, further relatives. We've all got these examples, and funnily enough, what does it take to build a relationship with those people? It's things like understanding people better, being able to, put your point of view across and understand their point of view as well. It's being able to empathize. It's being able to spend, different levels of time with these people, whether it's virtual meetings, in-person meetings, phone calls, whatever that looks like. There is a bunch of different ways that we have been able to build relationships with our people in our lives. The same goes with our candidates. So actually, let's forget the word call them people, because that's what they are. So let's humanize this a bit. How would I go about building any kind of relationship? And that would be actually me showing you that there is a reason to have a relationship with me. So if it's just jobs, fine. If that's your method, that's okay. But let's be honest, the jobs will dry up eventually. So how can I show that I am a market expert in what I do? So for example, if I work in IT, in say, for example, cloud and DevOps, which was my old market, how can I show that I can add value to those people by having a conversation with me? It's not about us anymore. It's always been about the other person. But unfortunately, in the world of recruitment, we've always thought about what's the benefit to us. Now it's about shifting it to the benefit to them. And that's how we go about building relationships and how we build sustainable relationships.
Of course. So knowing about the respective market or the segment you're working on is one of the most valuable trait to have. You just can't engage with somebody you don't know. Obviously about their respective market they work into. So that's a good starting point. So once obviously once you know who the candidate is, and then obviously you reach out. Again, we were talking about building recreational relationship against a transactional one, which has happened a lot in the last 12 to 18 months, especially with newbies.
Absolutely.
So what process do you actually recommend for the trainees and people you coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if anyone's online that has been one of my trainees in the past, they're probably sick to death of hearing me talk about this. But a lot of what you can do now is about taking the idea of specifically the recruitment aspect out of the relationship. Let's get to understand these people. Let's get to understand what makes them good at what they do. So, if we look at us as recruiters, especially, if I take the UK market as an example, there are 43,000 recruiters. On average, recruitment firms. On average, there may be about 20 recruiters per firm, whether it's one person in their back bedroom all the way through to the kind of Robert Halfs, the Rob Walters, S3s, Mark Page. So if that is the case, then if I take 20 as an example, 20 times 43,000 is 860,000 people. So what are you going to do to make yourself stand out compared to those people that are doing what you're doing? Everyone has been trained, and I know because I used to deliver that training years and years ago, to do certain things a certain way. And so, a lot of people default to ringing up clients and going, have you got any jobs? We default to speaking to candidates and going, are you looking for work at the moment? A nuanced conversation, and it doesn't matter what market you're in, having a better conversation and going, actually, if you were looking for a job at the moment, what would you be looking for? Talk me through that. I have a couple of opportunities, but I want to understand you first. Let me, again, if you think about it like if you were ever going to date a person, you want to be able to understand that person, what makes them tick, what their favorite films are. Oh, and you can kind of, create some relation to that. Or what kind of music are you into? Or what's your outlook on life? If you go that deep on the that you have. So what is the difference between doing that with someone that you're looking to create a personal relationship with than what you're looking to do to create a candidate relationship or a client relationship? So if I can then understand that person, go for it, Kevin.
Yeah. So, sorry to interrupt, Bobby. So basically, obviously, the steps you're suggesting is, building or talking through to build, trust and credibility, as a starting point, because
Absolutely.
that is something that's going to, forge long-term relationship building, taking you through the, entire candidate development journey, which you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly that. It's about, at the moment now, what is going to happen. And as I said, I don't know whether there is going to be a recession or whatever that looks like over the next 12 months. I'm not going to pretend to know enough about the economy to see what's happening, but you can start to see some of the telltale signs. So what has happened, and like having recruited in a couple of recessions, I'm not going to say that I was an amazing recruiter, but I was a fairly consistent recruiter. One of the things that I noticed was when you start building relationships with people, people come back to you. I hopefully see that with my training business. Hopefully all my clients like me and want to come back to me because they can see some value that I give them. So you've got to really kind of look at what value proposition you have. At the end of the day, as a recruiter, you are handling one of the 5 most stressful parts of anyone's life. Number 1, it's changing job. Number 2, getting married. And then ultimately, number three, number four, having a child, and number five, moving home. And you're handling one of those really important, stressful parts of their life. And so if I can see that you can handle my career in the best possible way, then it's, then that I'm going to be able to work things out. I mean, Gethin, if you think about it, we ask some of the most intrusive questions ever. I mean, does anyone know how much you earn, Gethin, in your close family and friends?
And not apart from yeah,
Not
no,
right.
nobody else. No, yeah.
Yeah, right. But that's in the first 5 minutes of every conversation, we ask a bunch of people that we've never met before, how much are you earning? What are you, what are your bonuses? What are your commission? It's so weird. And yet, why would I feel comfortable to say this information to those people that I wouldn't say to my best friends? It's nuts. So how can I show everything about what you're saying now is how can I show and how can I convince these people it's actually a really good idea to move from the stability of their current role if they're a permie, or actually look at my particular project if we're looking at a contractor, and that is going to be better than whatever I can see at the moment. And that's where you can show how you add the value. And then the questioning that you offer off the back of that is really important to then show how your candidate can potentially add value to your client, which then becomes a really important business development tool.
Sure. And then, so how does one? So, a couple of questions actually. At the back of this conversation now, you obviously you are in the training business. You train a lot of people. So, what are the bad practices that you would suggest? People stop sort of actually executing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So from the candidate side of things, stop asking surface level questions. Surface level questions are great, but it's not the only thing. So it's not about what we generally tend to do is we can cut some corners. So not about in the UK market specifically, it's not about just salaries. There are pensions, bonuses, CPD allowance, training, all that kind of stuff. Healthcare, which is now becoming more and more important as it's really difficult to get hold of an NHS doctor at the moment, and quite rightly too, because the pressure they're under. All of these things play a massive part. And in the UK, again, I need to learn more about the Indian market, and I'll probably do that with you, Kethan. But pensions over here can differ wildly on if I'm just so. Yep. I've worked with public sector organisations that offer 22% pensions, which if you are on a 50 grand salary, that's an extra, £11,000. So we've got to really kind of work out what these things look like. We've got to look at the emotional, motivational drivers of people. For example, if I'm, whether pensions are important to me because I'm quite young. Well, I'm not. I'm almost 39. But if I'm, is a pension important to me, or is it my salary because I'm actually looking towards potentially buying a house or increasing my credit score, or whatever that looks like. But we don't understand the real motivational drivers of each individual candidate. So actually, what are you doing this for? Some of instead of just understanding the surface level skills of people, let's actually understand what they use those skills to do. So what we generally tend to do, and every recruitment company in the UK will market their candidates to clients using something on them. Here's Kethan, he's got 9 years experience of doing this, and this, of web development or whatever it is. He has used these particular skill sets. Oh, and he's worked for these types of companies, which is all okay. But if I translate that into the CV of a recruitment consultant, that is like me saying, here's Kethan, he's got 9 years experience of recruiting. He's got the skill sets of speaking to candidates, speaking to clients, going on meetings. Now, does that say that you're any good at what you do? I mean, I know, I'm hoping you're good at what you do, but does that say this person is good at the job? No. What do we look for? If I was to look at an experienced recruitment consultant, I'd be looking for billings. I'd be looking for, kind of average fees, average salaries. How do they go about their sales process? How do they, what kind of projects have they done in particular? what kind of, what kind of difficult clients have they then brought around to their way of thinking? And so if that's what we look at in our own market, whenever we hire new people for, how can we find those KPIs, those metrics, those measures of success in our candidates' markets? Because all of our candidates have targets that they need to hit. But if we don't know those things, how can we then communicate them to our clients? And then, funny enough, if I've been working for one of your key competitors and I've been doing the right project with the right outcomes and successes, it's really easy for me to say, well, actually, even from a contract perspective, this contractor is on £1,000 a day. However, able to save 2.5 million in their last 2 projects. Now, how much more impactful is that to about a candidate, represented to a client? So if I know that a good recruiter is representing me in that way, I'm more inclined to go with them. And funny enough, you can involve your candidate in the process. So I'm not going to lie, I'm sure some of my ex-bosses may be listening. I was quite a lazy recruiter. I was looking for the most efficient way of doing things. So what I would naturally do is write my little synopsis about them and then email the candidate with what I've written and say, right, I've written all this about you. Is there anything else that you want me to write down, or that you want to write down, that would sell you to a particular client? And you'd be amazed how many people go, oh, hang on a minute, I haven't really thought about, some things that I could write down, because we are not very good at writing our CVs. Our CVs, I dread to think, I think it's about 1.2-ish million CVs that I've probably had a look at over 9 years or so. And so, I can see that people don't write enough about what they do, what have been their end results. Some people forget some of their basic parts of their job, and you have to coach them through it. So it's how you do that helps build the right candidate relationship. And then, funny enough, that then becomes your platform to then look at the business development side. Because if I know that, say, for example, I'll keep using recruitment as the market here, but if I know that this candidate has worked for S3 and had some success, Michael Page and had some success, Robert Walters and had some success, I will naturally assume that every recruiter in the local area will go, I don't want to miss out on this person, because we have this FOMO aspect. We want this, there's this element of corporate FOMO. I don't want to miss out on the best people because I'm struggling to find people. So if you could create a natural, there's a natural scarcity at the moment, but if you could show that there is a real reason to have a conversation with your candidates, people will speak to you. And then that leads towards the client the client relationship, and then the candidates get to know them, get to understand them, understand their challenges, rather than talking about what staffing needs have you got at the moment, which is essentially a conversation we have right at the end. And I don't think I'll use the same example that I said to you off air, but I'm sure anyone that wants to have a chat with me afterwards is more than happy to. But we want to be able to get to a point where we understand our client or our candidate, and then we can be understood. It's basic Stephen Covey's seven habits of highly effective people. I think it's lesson 4. Seek to understood. So if you don't understand what the challenges are, what the real problems are, and I mean real problems, not surface level, that's when you're going to be able to create really good relationships with people that actually want to do business with you.
And then I think I agree with you there, because channeling, or rather funneling the candidate relationships to actually then winning new clients. There are 2 things that happens. One is when you're sort of talking to the candidates, more about what's happening in the industry, what's happening in their lives and in their sector. And then when you channel that kind of information to the clients, you're obviously going to be on top of their list, compared to any other companies they're sort of currently working with or considering an alternative.
Absolutely. I mean, we all deal with with all kinds of people trying to sell us stuff. And if in my old market, in my particular niche, like I said, I used to work in the cloud and DevOps space. Average salaries were about £55,000 to £60,000, and therefore my average fee was somewhere between £11,000 and £12,000. And so in our personal lives, again, I always keep bringing it back to what we do in our natural, naturally as human beings. Now, if I was spending, yeah, I was going to say, so that's what, kind of essentially 10, 11 lakhs in India. But, if I was spending 10, 11,000 in the UK, what would I expect? What kind of level of a service would I expect on the thing I was buying? A car, a carrier bag, a handbag, a lovely piece of jewelry. I would be expecting the best service ever for that kind of money. So you've got to think, actually, if you're going to be charging 7, 8, 9, 10, I mean, in some cases, some of my clients are charging 30 to 50,000 pounds per placement. What would I be expecting for this service? And that's the benchmark in which you can find yourself working out what your strategy and what your value proposition is going to be, because you're delivering a really expensive service, but you're not communicating how you deliver that service, which is why most people don't like recruiters, because they don't understand the amount of work that we do, the funneling down, as you said, that funneling process from hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people, down to the 3 or 4 candidates that you send over. People don't understand what levels people go to do that. How can I explain that? And one of my best client relationships was when I was able to show my system. They could play around on my database, try and, and I'd show them exactly what I do to find the right person. And then funny enough, that level of empathy goes, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought. And when you get to that level where people go, you know what, fair enough, I appreciate what you do, that's when a relationship can happen. That's when that acceptance comes in. That's when everything comes in to say we are on the same level. Because at the moment, we all seem to think that because our client, or candidate's there, we're there. Actually, you're a consultant. For recruitment, you are a consultant. And if I'm a consultant, I have expert knowledge. I give, I take on your advice, and I can give you feedback based on what you've said to me. If I look at a surgical consultant as an example, if I've hurt my knee, I go to a GP in the UK, they're generalist, they'll say, have a look at certain things and then refer me. And they'll refer me to someone who only has knowledge in that space and will listen to me, ask me what's wrong, and be able to then come up with a certain thing and allow me to pick the right journey. Why aren't how can we do that as recruitment consultants to the candidates and clients that we have? Oh, I've just lost you, Captain. There we go.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Hi. So from the agency's perspective, there's a lot more than just finding CVs. That happens, and which is sort of the impression
absolutely.
that a lot of people get that, okay, all you're going to do is just go to LinkedIn or go to a job board and just find some CVs, and then actually demonstrating the value that you bring to the table as a consultant, which is much beyond just sourcing a CV. But there's lot goes on, and then you raise those points in terms of the relationship building, understanding the candidate, translating that information, that detail, into information, which is vital for the client. That, okay, fine, here's this candidate who can add much more value to your business.
Yeah, and I think we don't do enough, and this is across the board within recruitment. I don't think we do enough to show our trainees, our consultants, what their kind of value proposition is. How do we create a time quality cost saving or value add to all the to these processes? Because you may charge several £1,000s, but it costs a hell of a lot of money for any individual company to put a job ad out platforms. I would say that would cost in excess of 4 figures, to put it on all the platforms that most recruitment agencies have access to. I mean, LinkedIn Recruiter costs what, 4,000, something about £4,000 per license.
Mm-hmm.
That's expensive. So, that has a value add to it. All the kind of training, the kind of time spent, if I'm say, for example, I'm a IT manager on best part of 80,000, which then means if I break that down 50 weeks, that's 1,600 a week, which is 320 a day. So if I had to spend 3-4 days looking at, looking for people myself, doing those first aid screening calls, all that kind of stuff, that could potentially cost, make me kind of lose a week of my life, which is which is £1,600 first and foremost. But also, it's a lack of productivity. It's me having to then, do other stuff on my evenings and all that kind of and all the things that we need to take into account. So how can you communicate the value that you guys add over and above the ability for your client to do it themselves?
Totally. And then from the candidate management perspective as well, you mentioned the process of understanding how would you want to be dealt with, and then coming to the online world that we work in now, especially on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and networking. What has been your suggestion actually, or what is your suggestion in terms of how do people conduct the outreach, especially engaging in the initial conversations?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I'll probably come back to the point, or one of the points I was making earlier about there are, if I was to look at, I'm in an office in central Birmingham at the moment. If I was to look at how many recruitment agencies do some form of, say, for example, IT recruitment in and around a square mile of this place, I reckon I'd be into the hundreds.
Wow.
So out to the same candidates, what can you do to cut through the noise? Because I speak to, funny enough, I speak to some of my old candidates and stuff. And funny enough, they talk to me about how they're receiving emails and how they don't respond to them. Because either they think it's just going to be fairly generic, it's not going to have much tone of voice to it, and those particular kinds, it's pretty much just like a generic sales email that you probably have in your personal inbox that you go select all and delete. So how can we become different, and how can we show that we've got a level of understanding that will make people want to engage with us? Now, I'm A, Indian, and B, from up north. I'm from Yorkshire in England. And
Yeah.
funny enough, therefore, that makes me pretty frugal with money. So if I see something that offers me a financial benefit on email, I will click into the 50% off from a client. You could £1,000. Those can be quite exciting. So if I can find, if you can find a way to connect with your candidate that taps into their real motivations, and you won't do that straight away, but what you will do, if you over assume things, like I've had some horrific emails in the past, and funny enough, I use some of those in my training sessions to show how, I asked my trainee consultants what do they think about those particular messages, and how would they change how they do things. And funny enough, it's just simple, common sense, common courtesy things like actually reading the person's profile and using it as speaking to them about some experience that you found interesting. It could be, obviously there is, LinkedIn profiles are not the only source of information about your people. Where can you find other information? Again, I get my trainees to do a task about assuming that I'm a candidate in the marketplace, and how would they go about researching me? There's loads of different methods. You could look at Twitter, Facebook, loads of different aspects. And so we only shortcut to the default things of, hi, are you looking for a job? I've got this job. Are you interested? Whereas if we just spent 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds going, you know what? I can see that you've launched a podcast called The Recruitment Curry, and that you've been leading RPO Arena for so long. Just talk me through how that's been going. And funny enough, would you be looking at other opportunities in the future? It can be so much more engaging. Even things, breaking little things down, really kind of what can seemingly be quite unimportant things can really help. So I think I know you've probably followed a couple of my posts about, there's a line that people use to start off every email. I hope you are well. Now, do you care whether that person's well or not? And does that come across in that sentence? mostly no one cares about that sentence. But funny enough, if you can then change that, instead of "I hope you're well" to "Hi, how are you doing?" It's something that your candidate or your client might want to engage with. Because that actually, again, little things that cut through the noise, because you're getting, each candidate is getting lots of,
Same.
messages, phone calls, whatever that is. And actually, looking at the phone call side of things, if you just leave one phone call to one mobile number, I don't know about you, I don't even know what my mobile is at the moment, but if I was to just get one phone call from a random number on my phone, because your telephone number will be random
Yep.
to them to start off with, to it. But if I can see that you have tried to get in touch with me on a few different on a few different channels, so you may have tried to reach out to me. You've got my mobile number, so reach out to me on WhatsApp. You've got my you potentially have my email address off LinkedIn. So why not just don't just LinkedIn me. Maybe get in touch with me over email. Give me a call. Whatever that looks like. It's about creating a multi-channeled approach, because people respond to very different things. I always do a bit of a survey in my classes, and it's how people respond to things like answer phone messages or voicemail. So if that's the kind of the differences that we have in our own little rooms, what do you reckon our candidates are thinking? Do I want to respond to this? Do I not want to respond to this? You've got to give me a compelling reason to get back in touch
It's
with you.
and I can't agree more, because it's all about breaking the pattern. And then one thing that really the couple of things that that have been really working well for me, Bobby, uh, you know is one is most of my new engagements or new outreach, my emails will start with Bobby, hi, how you
Mm.
doing? So
Yeah, I noticed.
so
Which
most of the outreach is Bobby, hi. That's how I engage with people in real life. That Bobby, hi, good day, or how you
yeah,
doing?
because just remember, for most, I don't know how many people who I don't know how many people listening generally, but if you are a trainee consultant at the moment, and if you've just found you have been hired because of your personality and your behaviors. You have not been hired for any other level of experience. You've been hired because of who you are and how you've come across. So use that as an example. Use that as your benchmark. I'm not a dear kitten kind of person. I'm a hi or a hey kind of person, and that's my tone of voice. But that might not be someone else's. I notice lots of people pretend to be this overly corporate, tried to be, kind of prim and proper, and then they end up using the wrong words. So forget that. Allow yourself to come across as a breath of fresh air. Some of my highest performing consultants, all they do is they act as themselves. They don't care whether they come across as, in whatever way possible. They're a genuine person and they create genuine relationships. And I'm talking the kinds of people that I am seeing, uh, billing in excess of £400,000
Wow.
on contract, eight, or those people that are billing well in excess of £350,000 on perm. Those are the types of people that know themselves, know their game, and know what they can offer. Which I guess I know I did a post about this yesterday about psychological safety and understanding how having a safe environment to then be able to innovate, be yourself, express yourself. Which if some companies are doing it, great. I know a lot of companies don't necessarily allow for that level of psychological safety.
Oh, of course. And then, again, you mentioned about, following the process of by breaking the pattern, and, the mindset as well, that, if there's things like, if I don't place the candidates, I'll be fired, or if I don't bill, I'll be fired, which is true. But then if you're thinking that, no, I'm going to get those interviews and bill, it's totally
Yeah,
different, way of thinking. And that impacts your relationship building, with your clients as well, with your prospects, when you approach them.
absolutely. And funny enough, yeah, that was exactly the train of thought my head was going in. Because we go, right, if I don't pull a job from this call, then I have failed. Now, if you have that approach to hundreds of calls, your success rate is going to be less than 1%. And imagine if you did anything with a less than 1% success rate, would you do it?
No way.
So let's have a look at it. So let's reframe this. Let's look at it in a different way. What we're looking for, and what most business managers will always be looking for, is for evidence that consultants are doing things to help drive a relationship and drive, drive a kind of, a level with that business forward. So set yourself not just one KPI for your business development, but look at potentially, 3, 4, 5 things that you're looking to get out of every call. And if you get 2 or 3 of those 5 things, that's a successful call. If you get one of those things, that's a great call. So, for example, understanding project pipelines, understanding what kind of skills they generate. If someone's, if they are hiring at the moment, what kind of things do they do to hire? Because they're not going to use you straight away. You've got to prove some value to them. If I'm hiring for another trainer and just some recruit, rec to rec comes to me and says, "Hey, I've got this CV," I'm like, "That's cool, but why do you think this person's appropriate? I'm already going through my processes. I'll think about you later." So if that's what we think, how can we then circumvent the process with this? So, outputs, knowing some, creating a second conversation with that person, maybe meeting with that person, maybe just understanding what's going on from a financial, from a, if people aren't hiring at the moment, why aren't they hiring? What piece of information can I use to make that next conversation a bit more useful?
And then
And those are the metrics I'd want to set.
the key word you use there is conversations. So I picked this up from the book called the Conversion Code, which is more marketing focused, by Chris Smith. And then he raises an important point that conversations build conversions. The more conversations
Absolutely.
you have with people, obviously that's when you can have more conversions, because otherwise it's purely transactional. You're not getting anywhere. It's garbage in but garbage out. What you want is gold in, gold out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's even things like looking at, I talk a lot about, or me and my coachees talk a lot around speculative emails, to spec in a lot. Or my managers are telling me to spec in a lot. Now, I want to reframe that, because speculative means garbage, right? Speculative means I have no real knowledge of whether this person is appropriate to you, but I'm going to send them anyway. Whereas, how about we frame it and use another word with spec at the beginning, specific. And actually, I know that, I have created a bit of knowledge that says that I know that this person could be suitable. And I know this is suitable for you because of these particular things that you're looking to achieve. And this is why this person's matched those things. I mean, imagine if we just went that way, as opposed to just the usual kind of, "Hey, I think this person's got some skills that potentially might be of relevance, but let's have a conversation." Because, it's a bit like, it's a bit like sending a Tinder message that is completely way off, is way off message, and then expecting someone to get back to you with something exciting. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
So for starters, know your target market, or KYC. Know your customer and know
Yeah.
your candidate.
Know your candidate. Yeah, know your customer, know your candidate, know your client, know your market as well. If you can if you can actually be showing that you can demonstrate knowledge of your market, you don't need to know the ins and outs of what their job role is. But if you have a basic understanding, there are enough people on places like YouTube that will show you, for example, what a business analyst does on a day-to-day basis, mechanical design engineer does on a day-to-day basis, what a structural architect does. And so if we know that there's let's empathize, let's understand these people to then be able to build relationships from them on a corporate level as candidates and clients. Otherwise, you're just going to, like you quite rightly pointed out, otherwise it's just going to be garbage in, garbage out. And you don't want that. And that's when you start banging your head against a brick wall. You then start, reverting back to really kind of short things that we end up doing, things like just calling up and saying, have you got any jobs at the moment, which no one responds well to.
No, no. And then this is where following your posts, you do a lot of work on LinkedIn in terms of posting value added information, and then that's the sort of part of the process you want to get to, isn't it? That what value are you generating for your target audience, and then why
Yeah, I
should
mean,
those people talk to you?
I, yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, demonstrate. So, building a LinkedIn network is so important in most markets. However, in some markets, most of your candidates, if, for example, I'm recruiting for, I don't know, laborers or those kind of people, they might not necessarily be found on LinkedIn, which is where the KYC, the know your audience bit comes in. Those people might be on Facebook, they'll be on Instagram, they'll be on Twitter. And so it's actually, how do we create different things? And I'm sure the recruitment marketing people will think it's about how do we, understand who the audience is and how do we reach them effectively. So if you're looking at, I guess my target is usually recruitment business owners. For me, it's about how do I engage with those people? How do I create content that makes these people think, actually, Bobby knows what he's talking about? And then we have a conversation. And that's exactly the same thing that you guys need to do with the LinkedIn contacts that you generate. You don't want to just hire absolutely, add everyone up, absolutely everyone for the sake of it, that are going to be important for your business. So whether they are really good candidates in the marketplace, potentially, really good kind of, thought leaders in the space, whatever that looks like, and then actually engage with those people and say, look, I appreciate what you've done in this, and this. If I've heard a recruitment business owner on a podcast and I've really appreciated what they've said about things, I will say that to them. And funny enough, that starts conversations. And then those conversations potentially, as you say, lead to potential business. And so, and that's what you want to do. You want to be able to create a community of people that are bought into you, who can then, whether you're a candidate, whether they're your candidates or your clients, will know that you're the person to come to talk about this space.
Totally. So in terms of if you were to sort of conclude and give 3 or 4 closure points for people to use relationship building, as a starting point, so one is
Yeah.
know your customer, know your market, and then obviously know your candidates. Have as many conversations as possible to sort of
The
demonstrate.
first thing,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So
sorry.
number one, as you say, know your audience. Yeah, no, sorry, it just cut through on the feed. Yeah, so number one, know your audience. Know who it is that you're looking to target. But then also, the added thing is know the problem you solve. So if you can actually, no one has ever sold anything by not knowing how that thing solves a problem. It's just absolute basics. So if we can then understand that, so for example, if you can save time to hire by your methods, because the average hiring rate is this long, or I stop things from things like bad hires, because the cost of a bad hire, or having to replace someone who has only been in situ for a little while, can be anything up to 3 to 5 times that person's salary. So if you imagine that's a £50,000 a year candidate, that can be anything from 100 to £250,000 of either money lost or opportunity kind of gone out the window. So if that's your value add, because you've never had a dropout because of this is what you've done to match candidate to client, brilliant. It's all those things. Then we can come at to business development can be largely simple. In that, and this is not, I'll break that down into a bit of detail. Again, we have been so successful. The recruitment industry has been really successful at placing people with clients over the last year. Now, story, and that creates a narrative, doesn't it? But who has that story in a testimonial or a recommendation on LinkedIn or whatever that looks like? Because then, funny enough, if I've got a recommendation from one of a company's closest rivals, I can then just go to them and say, I have been doing this work, or our company, if it's not necessarily you, if you're a trainee, have been doing work with this company. Funny enough, I know that they're one of your competitors because of this, this, and this. Would you know, how can I help you? How can I show you how I can help you? You know, really simple tools as opposed to just, you know, I just remember having big lists of companies and then having to go, hi, I'm Bobby from Computer Futures. I specialize in cloud develop, you know, in cloud engineering. I want to know what's going on. And they're like, who the hell is this person, or why the hell are they on the phone to me? Whereas if I said, you know, if with hindsight, if I'd have said, actually, I've made this many placements for site reliability and cloud engineers with companies like X, Y, and Z over the last 3 or 4 years, in knowing how I went about that, at least it opens a conversation. So it's how do we cut through? Again, it's all about cutting through what everyone else is doing at the moment. And that's, you know, and that's something that you can have a chat with managers about, whatever that looks like.
And then, you know, specifically on the first cold call perspective, and this is more that I use for you know, outreach to prospects.
Yeah.
I learned this from a post from YouTube. Is Bobby, hi, thanks for taking my call. This is a cold call. Are you gonna hang up, or can I steal a minute? And it has been phenomenal, you know, in terms of the outcome. Most of the times, at least 50% of the times, they just, you know, I get a laugh on the other line. Somebody laughs like, wow, that's a different approach, because in all they hear is that.
And you know what, Gethin, you've hit a couple of
So,
nails on the head there, because what we generally tend to think is, you know, I'll be honest, it is not about having one approach to anything. It is about having a number, and that the fact that that particular approach for you gets, you know, a really high success rate, that's brilliant. But then we can look at the other people that haven't responded and go, right, okay, what do I need to do differently? You know, it's about having, you know, like again, another LinkedIn post I put in. You wouldn't do woodwork using a chisel, or only a chisel. You use several different tools to get the right shape of what you want. And so if we're just using the one thing, we're never going to get anywhere. So you need to have different avenues to market, whether it be, you know, those candidates, you know, highlighting the credibility of you by getting testimonials and that kind of thing, or just getting to understand, you know, problems that similar companies are facing at the moment and having a conversation about them. You've got essentially months worth of BD work just by using those three things.
Totally, and then which is why you know, obviously this subject or this topic of relationship building, because you know, it's a, you know, topic for life, because in all our life, you know, revolves around building relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Sometimes in my life, I probably haven't built some of the right relationships, and you know, we need to. You know, you can happily a post-mortem on those things, because you know Simon Sinek was who, you know, I kind of take a lot of heed from. During one of his TED talks, he said, actually, do you know what the problem is with all my failed relationships? Do you know what the common denominator is? Me. I'm the common denominator of all these failed relationships. So what is it about those relationships that were potentially not great, and what could I have done to make those things better? And when I listened to that, and I was like, I get that. I really get that. And actually, maybe we look at those things to keep improving. It is not a succeed once kind of industry. It's about how do you, to use a rugby analogy for, in rugby, we have a number of tackles and we try and improve, we try and get further on each tackle. Whether it's league or union, you have that kind of approach. So if that's, or in American football, it's all about having a certain amount of attempts to make gains. And that's exactly what it is. That is, that is what business development is. You'll get objections, and how you handle those things is a whole other, kind of potential LinkedIn Live to go through.
It is.
But But yeah, it's about how you face those objections head on. It's how you can prove to me that you are worth my time, whether I'm, whether you want to be with me as a candidate or a client, funny enough, or as a potential life partner. Everything is about proving to the other person that you are worth their time, and how you go about that, and how you go about, reframing what you do. Up to you guys.
And then on that note, one important thing that we should not forget is, because we are all humans, not everybody wants to have a relationship with everybody. So not to get
Absolutely.
disheartened and then move on to the next one, because otherwise, you're just stuck in the dilemma.
If I'd have thought that when I first started out at recruitment, my life would have been so much easier. It really would, because we just think, we always think, oh my God, this person didn't like me. Then, you know what? So what? Not everyone is going to like you. I know not everyone likes me, and that's okay. It's about working with the people that potentially will like you, and that's why that's why it's about having lots of conversations each day, and unfortunately facing quite a bit of rejection to be able to get the amazing people that you end up working with that become some of your best clients or some of your best
Absolutely.
candidates in that particular regard.
Totally. So let's ask our audience if they have any questions. And if they want to sort of put in the chat box for Bobby, Bobby to answer. And then if not, they can always reach
Yeah,
out to Bobby
absolutely.
on his LinkedIn. Let's see what we have. We've got one response, and apparently this is from Ahmedabad, thanking you for your insights, from Ravi.
Oh, thank you, Ravi.
It's like, thanks for sharing your experience and thoughts.
As a proud Bengali, I'll say dhunabad to you.
No, it has been really valuable, because although it's a topic widely discussed, but then when we actually put into practice, how it is, how many times we sort of go back to the old practices of, do you have a job, or are you looking for a job?
Yeah, it's just so frustrating. And if you look at it yourself, like I say, if I use that dating example that I had before we went on air, it is so futile by just going, "Hey, I'm looking for the end result. Are you interested?" I mean, if you did that in any aspect of your dating life, I'm looking for a marriage. Are you interested? You're like, what the hell is going on here? So we've got to, that might be your end goal, but you've got to actually understand what people want before you can put those particular end goals people's way.
Totally. I really enjoyed the conversation, Bobby. Thank you very much. And next time I'm in Birmingham, let's go for a curry.
Absolutely, I could take you to some amazing desi mixed grill places up here. So 100%.
Looking forward to it. And thank you to all our audience for obviously contributing and attending the show as well. Thanks, Bobby.
Cheers. Bye.
Yes, bye.